Damarius Bilbo, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for having me.
Man, I tell you what, I really appreciate you coming on. I know we've tried a few times, and I know you're extremely busy. You're about to get even busier with the draft coming up next week, but I appreciate the sacrifice, and that means a lot to me.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, man.
So, when I think about you, tell me if I'm wrong. When I think about you, the three things that really stand out, probably in this order, is faith, family, fatherhood. Is that far off?
No, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. You can see that. You can see that. And so it's one of the, that's really the reason why I wanted to get you on here. Look, and the other thing with faith is just the fact, I think in today's world, sometimes we're a little bit hesitant to show it, and you're not. I mean, when you watch your Instagram, your stories, you're, putting devotionals on there. I mean, you're not preaching, but you're putting devotionals on there, and you can see that, it's a part of the way you start your day. It's, it's things throughout your day.
Yeah.
And I just think that's so important.
Yeah, very, very. I mean, I was raised by a grandma and a mother in Mississippi. So that spiritual component was always kind of incorporated. And as a child, you don't really know what it means. It kind of sounds like a fairy tale almost when you talk about creation and the 7 days, and on the seventh day he rested and all this. Sounds like an amazing story, but as you grow and you're seeking something to believe in, and how did all this come about, it becomes more and more clear, who your father is, and what you should be believing in and following. So it just gives me purpose, outside of what the world tries to make you think your purpose is here, and it's always to serve him first.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So you were brought up in a spiritual home.
I can't say brought up because we weren't at church, we weren't, doing that. But, I remember going to my grandma's house every Sunday. She was playing Bobby Jones gospels. And, my mom used to always say, I grew up without a father. So my mom would always make a comment like, that's not your real father. That's your earth. She, even for herself as a mother who was present, she used to say, I'm your temporary mother. What I'm saying? Like, you have a father in heaven. He's just, we're on borrowed time. And I was like, what the hell is she talking about? Borrowed time. And, as you age and, you start to lose people and you start to gain people, it becomes very clear in terms of what this world and what this earth means. So I wouldn't say I was brought up in, but I was very aware of what the messages my grandparents and my mom was sending at a young age.
And you have moved, we'll talk about it more, but you have definitely brought that into your current family as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's tough, but yeah, it
is. It is. Look, how is the family?
Family's great, man. Obviously Aiden's, him and your boys are around the same age. So, that junior year, it's tough for him, and, the sports and what he wants to do. And I think it's getting more real for him too, in terms of what this next year means. And I don't think we're the household that try to remove the child just because he's 18, but it's like, you got to figure it out. Like, we're here to help you and support you, but, it's your life. And, especially me as an athlete, former athlete, I'm not trying to live vicariously through my son. I want him to do what makes him happy, but, also know that he's still a child and he doesn't know everything. So.
And does he accept that? Because mine doesn't. He knows everything. He's 16 years old. He knows everything.
Yeah. Same boat, and it's depending on what month it is or what he wants in return. Like, he acts like he gets it when he wants something. I know when he usually wants something, because it'll be question after question, long conversation.
Then dad has wisdom, right?
He likes me. And then next 5 minutes, like, hey, Dad, can I go here? I'm like, yeah, that's why you were talking to me for an hour. Sacrifice. Yeah.
Hey, what about your daughter? You talk about precious. Oh my goodness.
That's boss lady right there. She's 5 going on 6. The great thing about her and Aiden, like, they're same birthday month. So she's 14th. He's the 31st. So it's like back-to-back birthdays. But I mean, you talk about somebody that knows what she wants. Like, she's a little dictator. Like, she reminds me, I always laugh. She reminds me of Stewie on Family Guy. She tells you what she's going to do, how she's going to do it, when she's going to do it. I'm like, no, chill out. but she's just a doll. She's literally a baby doll.
She is beautiful.
So
I mean, she really is. She really is. And look, I mean, I'll give you a quick story. Like you and Kat, really have a special place in my heart. You don't know this, but our sons were on the same soccer team. For everybody listening, our sons were on the same soccer team. It's how we met. And there was a soccer match. It was in the morning. I get there. I'm in the midst of a pretty contentious divorce battle at that time. And so I've got on that team, of course, there's your son, there's my son, and then there's my then wife's divorce attorney, and son was on that team.
Wow.
I go up to the field. I've got my soon-to-be ex. I've got her divorce attorney there as well, right next to her. And I'm like, and there's like 15 parents right there. I'm like, I can't sit here or stand here for an hour plus next to them. It's so uncomfortable. And that was all on me. I'm not saying they were making me feel uncomfortable. So I looked down at the edge of the field and there were some bleachers down there and there was a couple down there. And so I'm like, you know what? I hope they don't mind. There's a small little bleacher. I'm like, I'm gonna go down there and talk to them. And so I went down there and it was you and Kat. And you guys were so just warm and welcoming. And look, man, I've always been so appreciative of that. So I just want to say thank you. And, it's one of those things you never know what somebody's going through, right?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying by any means that they were purposely making me feel uncomfortable,
Right.
but it's just, I was in the midst of that and everything going on. And you guys were just welcoming. We've, figured out we were both from Mississippi and all that. And it's kind of where, friendship struck up from there. And I just appreciate that so much of you guys.
No problem. You would have never known. I mean, you were always just a nice guy and, had a lot in common, obviously with the boys being around the same age, upbringing and stuff like that. So, it was easy. We always kind of live by, words, lie, action, reveal truth.
True.
So we always just try to be people who are good natured, good spirited, regardless of color, gender.
Yeah.
We just try to be nice people.
That's what you are, of course, and we'll go into it later. But you were representing at the time Alvin Kamara, who my boys, being rabid Saints fans, so much, worshipped. And when they found out that you were his agent at the time, they were just like, "What is he really?"
Right.
And they just were looking up to you. And there's, there were other things that happened too, where you really had. A deep impact on both boys with kind of their worldly view and introducing them to things. So again, I just want to thank you for that. Look, let's talk about you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Originally from Mississippi,
Man,
you were quite the athlete.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Okay. I'm going to go through this and you tell me what I missed.
Okay.
All-American in both football and baseball, USA Today and Gatorade Player of the Year in football. You won a state title in football. You were drafted by the Brewers as a pitcher while in high school, throwing 95. Is that correct?
A little faster, but yeah.
A little faster?
A little faster. I think I topped out at like 98.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Man, that's pretty darn impressive. And then you from there you went on to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, where you played quarterback, and then eventually went over to wide receiver, where you teamed up with not future, but Hall of Famer Calvin Johnson.
That's a Megatron. Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys are quite a threat.
Yeah. We were more him than me, but it's a good story.
Nah. And now look at you, man. You're not built like a quarterback or a wide receiver by any means. You're more like a linebacker.
Like a linebacker. I mean,
like a linebacker or like Aaron Donald. Hey, so after that, you then went pro, and you were with Cardinals, Cowboys, Titans.
Not Titans.
Not Titans. Okay.
Cardinals and Cowboys. Yes.
Okay. All right. So you've had quite the athletic career. It's no surprise where Aiden gets his talent from.
Yeah. When you're young, you're just playing to play. I didn't grow up in one of those households. It was always books. It was always the academics, and that's mainly why I chose Georgia Tech. No slight or offense to any other university or school, but when I went to Georgia Tech on my visit, the people that were there that were walking me through the university, the institution, like they had a strong focus on academics. And
Yeah.
being in the city of Atlanta back in early 2000 and seeing the buildings, the billboards, you don't really get that in South Mississippi, you know.
No.
So,
No.
I think I fell in love more with the city of Atlanta and what was being built around me more than I did the game of football or playing college football. It was more business for me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I felt like we set out to make a 30-year decision versus a 3, 4 year decision.
And Georgia Tech is starting to come back around too, aren't they?
Ramblin' Wreck. They got old Brent Key, who was one of my
Yeah.
former teammates. I think Brent was a senior when I was a freshman, starting left tackle with George Godsey when I came in, and he always had those great leadership qualities. So it's no mistake why he's leading the charge over there at Georgia Tech right now.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love having two very competitive teams and
Mhm.
in Georgia. It's fun.
Yeah, it's good for the state. Great for the
Yeah,
state.
it is. It is. And not being from here, you kind of, as you kind of have to pick someone,
Yeah,
right? And it's really like every weekend. I hope Georgia wins. I hope. And when
right,
I say Georgia, I mean of course UGA and of course Georgia Tech,
right,
and kind of a little bit conflicted in November when they play,
right.
but it really just kind of depends. All right,
Right.
so now you are head of football, and tell me if I'm correct. Head of football operations for Klutch Sports Group. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Well, yeah, I started the division here. I was acquired back in 2019 as head of football at the time. And we were acquired by a company called UTA, United Talent Agency, myself and Rich Paul. And we just built the football division out, built it out to something I would say one of the best in the business, if not the best.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, you've got a roster, a stable of superstars on there, don't you?
Yeah, we got great. And again, I can't take all the credit for it. My biggest thing was to come here to put the foundation of the division together. But in the meantime, we've hired some amazing agents, some amazing individuals in client services, marketing, to basically build up what we call a company now. But at the time, it was really led by Rich Paul's vision and what he had already done for Clutch basketball, and tried to kind of push some of that imprint of what the leadership in basketball, the individual brands, and all that stuff. Kind of pull that over in football, which really hadn't been done before because of the size of the rosters, the culture of the NFL, and guys not playing as long, not having the visibility because they wear helmets. So Rich had a strong vision, and we made the hires to support that vision, and we're here
He,
now.
he must be an amazing guy, Rich Paul.
Yeah, nothing short of it. I mean, he's probably one of the top, and this is not athletes, entertainers, just people. He's probably one of the top 5 people I've ever met in terms of just the guy knows everybody's name. He knows everybody's, title. He knows what everybody's role. He knows pretty much everything about every person. And the type of respect he shows, just you would think because he has so much knowledge, he talks a lot, but he listens a lot more than he
There
talks,
you
which
go.
is
There you go. He
yeah,
just seems, he seems like such an amazing visionary, which is what you kind of alluded to, and businessman, just such a forward thinker of a guy, and it's amazing what he's built.
yeah. I mean, well, he gets what we all sometimes, forget is that everything you do involves people,
Yeah,
and I think that when you're talking about whatever vision you have for people, I mean, for businesses, it has to involve people. You can get into this whole AI and all this stuff, and what Rich is probably 10 years down the road for what people are thinking now, because he sees the changes in people. He sees the changes in culture.
hmm
He's young enough, but he's mature enough and aged enough and experienced enough to,
yeah,
whether it's Gen Z, he gets it all.
yeah. I was about to say he gets it. He
He gets
understands it.
very few people that can walk into the room and have a conversation with somebody that looks like them,
hmm
a conversation with somebody that's 40 years older than them, a conversation with somebody like every single person he comes across, he has something in common with it. And it's just by the grace of God that, I mean, if anybody had the opportunity to have an ego and it's probably be deserved,
Yeah,
it would be Rich. He doesn't consider himself a super agent, a super CEO or anything. He just works. And that's the thing I appreciate about it. He's never not working.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. All right, we talked about some of the superstars you guys have on the basketball side. I'm not going to go through it's too lengthy. I'm not going to go through it, but one that stands out. LeBron James is on the NBA side, is being a client. On the NFL side, you guys have Jalen Hurts, and I mean, there's several. I mean, you've got Chase Young on there. I mean, go on and on. Can I ask you a question about Jalen Hurts? Is he? Well, I'm going to ask you anyway, whether you say yes or no. Is he? Is he just? He just seems like such a great guy.
Yeah.
Is he that way off the field? Like, is that legit? Like, is he just really just like from his smile, just everything about him? Is he really?
Yeah, I'm not around Jalen a lot. The lead on him is Nicole Lynn. She's the lead agent on
Yeah.
him. But obviously, as an agency, we encounter him. But I
Yeah.
represent the guys on the Eagles, and I mean, he's a human being. I think he is one of the few guys that don't get caught up in the hype.
Yeah.
He was just on the Time 100 list of most influential people. But I think he's one, and you could tell how he was raised by his mother and father, that he's one that doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low about things, and is a real faith-based person.
Yep.
So
Yep.
he knows what's for him is what's for him, and he's living in every moment. So
Yeah, I've just been so impressed with him, with all the hype around him, and you think about it would go be easy for it to go to somebody's head.
yeah,
It just doesn't seem that way.
his team here at Klutch, Jenna and client services, Joe D'Amelio in marketing, Nicole. I mean, they speak volumes about him. Like whether it's on a set with Brand Jordan, or
Yeah.
doing a Hulu commercial, whatever. He's just always pleasant to people. So I don't think it's one moment where 10 years down the road you'll have these stories come out that he treated this person this way. No, he's not that type of person. He respects everybody.
Hey, so I want to ask you this: NIL. Do you guys represent
Yeah,
college players?
yeah, we do. We have more on the basketball, football. We're still trying to figure out the football, which is a little wild, wild west.
Yeah, it is.
I think basketball has always been a little clearer because of the one and done. Guys are not, I mean, it's changing now because it seems like guys are staying in school longer to make more money.
Yeah.
But I think football is just more of a wild, wild west. So we're very, very particular in terms of who we represent. And it has to be a family and an individual that wants to be educated and empowered first, and not just what deals, what I have, because everybody wants marketing, but they don't understand branding.
Yeah.
Everybody wants a paycheck, but they don't understand, hey, what value am I giving that company that's giving me that paycheck? So
Yep.
we lead with education first.
No, and you know what? You and I have had talks about that before, and it's amazing what Klutch does.
Yeah.
And it's no wonder you guys are really the premier sports agency out there.
Yeah.
My original view of sports agency was, hey, let's get them the highest paid contract we can. Yes, that's part of it.
Right.
But there's so much more that you guys do, right?
Yeah. And I think that's I'm fair to say that there are a lot of good agencies. That's just me. Like I don't
Yeah.
think there's any one good. It's kind of like vehicles. It's like you can get a Mercedes, you can get a Dodge, you can get a Nissan, a Toyota. They're all good cars, but what are you looking for?
Yeah.
Do you want a rough, rugged, all-terrain vehicle, or do you just want something to cruise in? They're all good agencies in terms of they all do marketing. They all have negotiated big contracts, but we often forget, and I think this is me as a former player, we often forget that it's the player that's doing the work. Like the
Yeah.
player, that there's no such thing as the best agent or the biggest agent, or the agent is only as good as his player. So we all have
Good
had
point.
like, the same year I had Chase Young at number 2, I had Jeff Okuda at number 3. I had Mekhi Becton, who's a top 15 pick also. And Chase came in the league as defensive rookie of the year. Next year he blows out his Achilles and patella. So I can't say I'm the best agent because I had the number 2 pick who just won the defensive rookie of the year. And then next year the kid blows out his ACL. And then I'm like, oh, I didn't do anything. Like I was the same person when Chase was drafted number 2, when Chase won the rookie of the year, when Chase blew out his Achilles, and when Chase just got a huge contract by the Saints. Like you don't change as the agent. The player is the one who's sacrificing. He's putting everything on the line. So this whole notion that there are super agents, no, we have to be very good at our job. We have to perfect the craft. We have to know the relationships internally, not just with the player and the families, but also with the organization that we deal with. And we got to protect the player. And I think all agents seek to do that.
Yeah, and you guys do a great job of once the career's over,
Yes.
making sure they're set up, and man, because you hear the horror stories, 5 years after they're bankrupt, and you're like, how in the heck is he bankrupt? He made millions of dollars, but you guys do all that you can to prevent that from happening and make sure they're invested wisely and they're set up, and hopefully future generations are set up as well.
Well, that's another notion I think that people don't understand is that the agent has nothing to do with the guy's financials. Like our job is to make them money, not keep their money. That's why they hire financial advisors and institutions like Merrill Lynch and Wells Fargo and Bank of America, Truist, and all these wealth managers to protect their wealth. Our job is to make it. Where an agent really comes in and protect the players to have those conversations. Hey, are you meeting with your financial advisor? Are you sticking to your budget? You know, tell them what they need to hear versus what they want to hear. And
Yeah.
really having conversations, and my ability to relate to the athlete, because I was a former athlete, I've been fired for telling guys exactly what they need to hear because everybody else was saying it differently. And
Yeah.
then he goes out and figured out like, hey, you were telling the exact truth. Like that guy didn't tell the truth, but it sounded good,
Yeah.
So our job is to really connect with these players on a deeper level outside of football. Understand that these are people. Yeah, they're professional athletes, but us as agents and them as athletes, that's their God-given ability. We have to really dive into who they are trying to become as a professional, as a person, on and off the field, so that when that time comes, that transition happens, they're not lost. They don't know, hey, what's next. We all have that what next moment in our life. Whether it's probably when you and me became fathers. We was like, oh shoot, like what next?
No,
There's no plan for it, So same with them as athletes. They've been in this bubble since middle school, high school, college, and NFL. And there's no more football after the NFL. I mean, you can go play flag football and play on these but it's no more football to that level, right? So what conversations are you having with the client to help them understand that today may not be what it is. Life today may not be what it is 3 years from now, 5 years from now. Shit, in the NFL with it being a collision sport, it may not be the same next year. So you have to have the plan. You have to stick to it. So those are the type of conversations we do at Klutch. We have, check in with our guys. We make sure that we're, holding them accountable for why they sign with us. It's so easy when these guys get locked into contracts just to forget about them because, hey, we're in the 2025 draft. There's going to be a draft every single year. Every year after this, there's going to be a draft. Football is not slowing down. So
Damarius, you're constantly on the road, whether it's going to, pro day workouts. One time you were going, I think, from the Pro Bowl, then you had to stop somewhere else. And then I think it was off to the Super Bowl. I mean, you're constantly planes here and there. I mean, all over the country. How do you balance work and family? I mean, that's got to be so difficult, especially with your kids being so active.
Yeah, I think that time it was they actually changed it around a little bit. It was I was leaving Mobile for the Senior Bowl.
That was it.
I was in Orlando for the Pro Bowl.
Yeah,
and I went to whatever Super Bowl city it was in. But they've done a good job of like. Those things used to be the same week, like the Pro Bowl and the Super Bowl would be back to back, but the Senior Bowl and the Pro Bowl would be the same week. They've kind of spread them out over the week. But to answer your question, it's just making my family inclusive, like including them. Like these are all things where, I mean, they can jump on a flight with me. There's been time like I remember representing Jarvis Landry, early in his career when he was a Miami Dolphin. And, Miami used to play those 1:00 games.
Yeah.
And, I'll fly in on Saturday with Aiden and, we'll get a nice hotel on the beach. We'll go to the beach. We'll hang out. We'll go to Jarvis's house and play with his dogs. And I'll do my work with Jarvis. And at the time, Jarvis wasn't a father.
Right.
And getting to be in there playing, watching TV and stuff like that. And my players were they were understanding. You know, you have to have a client that sees himself as a father one day and is kind of inspired by, the way in which I worked, but also with my son. And then, Sunday comes, we'll go to the game, 1 o'clock game. After the game is over, we'll go to dinner, and then we're jumping on a flight, to get him back for school on Monday. And he loved it. I show him pictures now at 16. I mean, it's so crazy. He's probably 5, 6 years old, and he still remembers it. He's literally still 7, 8 years. He still remembered things where, hey, I remember meeting Antonio Brown at the Pro Bowl. I remember, meeting Melvin Gordon, here, at this game. So just making them feel inclusive in terms of what is going on, but also prioritizing them, because I hate to sound like this, but clients come and go. The clients,
Yeah, good point.
They do become your family.
Yeah.
But, I think sometimes we prioritize ourselves like we're the most important things in our client's life. No, they have families, they have girlfriends, wives, mothers, father, like they're their own individuals. So you have to prioritize your family, because I tell all my clients, I remember one time, I'm not going to say the player's name, that same thing. He was on the West Coast. So, if you go to West Coast, it's a time difference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I fly out there early. And this is the time where Aiden had a baseball game. And I flew out there Saturday, didn't make the baseball game. The way it usually works, I'll take the home team to dinner after the game because they're home, but I'll take the away team to dinner that Saturday night before the game. We'll hang out. And so I missed the game. Aiden's my son's baseball game. Went out there Saturday. This one player had a horrible game, ended up like losing the game. We were supposed to go to dinner that night. I didn't see him after the game. He stayed in the locker room, so I ended up leaving. I went back to my hotel, hit his mom up, waiting for him to dinner. I go to the restaurant where the reservation was made. He didn't come. I'm on the West Coast, right? So I'm blowing his phone up. I go by his house. He's not home yet. I'm like, man, I'm just trying to see if you're okay. So I had an early morning flight. I jumped back on the flight. He hits me up Monday afternoon. Hey, man, I'm sorry. Obviously, you saw the game. I was like, yeah, man, but, I get the football part of it. But you got to understand, I just flew across country. Not to sound selfish,
right?
But Aiden had hit a home run, and I didn't get that moment back with my son. Like, I came out here to be with you, to support you, but you left me on red because you were feeling a certain type of way about the game. Like, I'm your agent. Let's talk about it,
Yeah.
I got to at least see you on this trip. I didn't even get to see him. So I wasted 2 days basically just to fly across country and sit into a hotel. And that was one of those learning moments to where I said, like, never again, I'm going to prioritize my family because, I don't get to see my son hit a home run again, possibly,
Yeah. Yeah.
And we know the state of today with plane crashes, leaving home and coming back is not guaranteed.
No, it's true.
So I had a real conversation with him, and I told him, I said, look, one day you're going to be a father, hopefully, and you're going to do things, you're going to sacrifice, for your child, and you're going to have to leave certain moments behind, and you're going to be put in this same moment you put me in. And I hope that you don't feel the way I feel right now, because, I don't get to tell my son sorry, because when I got back, my son was asking me, hey, how was everything with the client? How was everything with the client? And I'm like, I couldn't say I didn't see the client.
Right.
Like, well, you just missed my game and you didn't see the client. So you're always in that situation where you have to be smarter with your travel. Now, what I do a lot, I do still go to the games to support the players, but I like to go on off days, on Tuesdays, when, they're just hanging out at their crib. They're off during football season. They get an off day. So I get to go hang out and really spend time with them. So I can drop my kid off at school, on Tuesday, jump on a flight, go see them, have lunch, hang out with them for a day, and then be back by dinner, But I get real time with them versus, going to a football game. I always tell these guys, I'm not your fan. I'm your partner. I'm your business partner.
That's good.
I'm a fan of yours, but I'm not your fan. I'm not in the stands cheering. And you said earlier, sometimes you have to pick a side. I have the luxury of not picking a side. I can go to a game and not root for anybody as long as the players come out healthy, right? So it's one of those things that you always have to, manage, expectations of your families, but also of the clients.
You have to be such a great role model to these guys you represent.
I will hope so.
You have to be. And when you were telling that story, I was thinking about, gosh, that's hopefully with that player that's really sunk in, and that they'll bring that into their life when they're a father, and they'll start valuing that time and really prioritizing and understanding, the sacrifices that it takes to be a good father
Absolutely.
with that. Hey, so, we talked about your faith and how strong it is. How does that play into fatherhood for you?
I think it gives you that foundation that you're not doing it alone, but also letting, and I'll call him by his name, my son Aiden, like, and it's pretty cool that he goes to a Christian academy. So, they have small groups, man groups, they have chapel, things like that. So what it does is, I understand that the world doesn't love your child the way you love your child.
Right.
That's just the truth of the matter. I understand that, your child is going to learn things outside of the household that you instill in them inside the household. That's just the world we live in, through social media, through the access that these kids have nowadays. So, my faith in just helping him understand that, we're not doing this alone, and just having an understanding of who your real father is, God's grace, his glory, just it gives that foundation that, look, things are going to go wrong, but this is how you get them back on track, and to help him really find himself in the Lord and not in anybody else. I would like to think that I've been a good role model, in terms of, things haven't always been great with me and his mom, but just showing him that I'm not going anywhere
Yeah.
on time, if it's God's time for me to go, I go, but, I'm not leaving you. I'm not abandoning you. I'm not stranding you. And you're going to always have that voice, or my ears to listen to whatever you have. So, I think just having that relationship with the Lord again allows me to have that strength sometime. And, as a father, sometimes you just don't feel like doing it. You don't feel
Yeah. No,
like,
it's true.
that drive up to Lake Point for baseball, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. But the story of Christ is sacrifice. He
Yeah.
sacrificed for us, and the smallest gift we can do is sacrifice for others. And I feel like that's what I've done for my son. I feel like I've given him lessons that are all Bible based, and things that you can go and find in the Bible when you read the Word. Like my advice as a father, as a person, as a human being, would be nothing if it wasn't based on biblical readings.
Yeah.
Things that you can find and go back and see. It's kind of like going to a church and the pastor says something and you're like, "Oh, where can I find that in the Bible?" He's like, "You can't." It was like, well, I don't know if I want to take that advice, So that's what I try to lead with. And I'm not perfect by no stretch of the imagination. I've made my mistakes as a father, but I always say mistakes are only mistakes if you can correct them. Like,
Yeah.
if it didn't take him to his grave and put him in danger, yeah, I was supposed to make that mistake because we
Yeah.
both learn from it. So, we talked the other day about, I was telling him it's okay to be angry, sad, depressed, because, he was going back and forth about baseball. And I said, it's okay to be that, but it's not okay to stay that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, you
Great
have
point. Yep.
to just
Love it.
manage those emotions, and able to feel it and experience it. You got to be able to manage it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I want to be that person that you come and manage it with. Come talk to me about it. Like, what's going on? Like, because I heard a door slam and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And so I went up there and I didn't go up there and raise, hey, why are you slamming doors in my house? I was like, yo, what's going on, man? And, we went downstairs and we just talked. And it's a lot easier to talk to a 16-year-old boy when he's eating, because he's over some food. Hey, let's get something to eat, talk. And, he kind of let it out and kind of told me how he was feeling. So, everything I do, and this is a lesson learned, and is try to have some kind of, Bible verse or base that he can always go back and reference as he ages and
Yeah.
say, hey, I remember, because that book is not changing.
Yeah.
My tone changes, my attitude changing. That book is the most consistent thing we have.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Hey, you alluded to earlier about you didn't have a father present when you were growing up. You value being a father so much. Do you think that's one of the reasons why?
yes, a thousand
Yeah.
percent. I mean, I never was able to wrap my head around, again, going back to the Bible, creation, the
Yeah.
sacrifice of, the Lord died for our sins. If you believe that, which I do, um, that's a sacrifice, right?
Hmm.
I never understood how a earthly father can help create something, right, with your mother, and then just disappear. And
Yeah, I know.
be responsible, not reach out.
Yeah.
I don't have it in me to create something and leave it stranded, you know, or to buy or build something and not take care of it. You
Right.
know, I just feel like that's something that should be in every human's nature, is to protect what you help build or create. That's going back to Rich Paul. Like Rich built Clutch, you know,
Yeah.
so he's going to protect it. He's going to do the things necessary to support it and make sure it grows, right? And that's the same way I approach fatherhood. Is like me growing up and not seeing it. My mom did a phenomenal job of not letting us feel that we were missing something, but we knew it, right? You go
Yeah.
to baseball games and I'm like the biggest, the best, and I'm hearing all these other fathers cheer for their son, and I'm like, he's not even that good, but his dad's here.
Yeah.
And that kind of put a spark under me. Is like, you know, I knew my dad wasn't present, but shit, I'm gonna give everybody else. Excuse my French. I'm gonna give everybody else something to cheer about. You know, what I'm saying? They're not gonna focus on their son. They're gonna focus on how far I hit this ball, or how far I throw. I can't say I was angry, but it
Did
was.
that drive you more?
Yeah, it was a driving factor. Just
Yeah.
that I didn't have a father in the stands, it kind of motivated me. And then when I became a father, like, when Aiden was born, I was with the Cowboys,
Yeah.
going back and forth on the practice squad. I was talking to Wade Phillips at the time about, like, hey man, I don't want to play safety, like all this stuff. And I knew I was going back and forth. My agent at the time was Todd France. He represents Dak Prescott now.
Yeah.
He's at Athletes First, left CA, a great guy. I was talking to Todd about it, and I was just like, man, I don't want to play safe. I don't feel like I want to play football anymore. I went through this in college, going from quarterback to receiver. Now I'm going from receiver to safety. I don't want to do this anymore. And Kat had just found out that she was pregnant with Aiden, and I think that made the decision. Obviously, I was scared as hell moving away from football, but it made the decision easier because I'm like, now I have something that I can focus on and protect. And I am the deciding factor in this child's life. And I don't have to go and, does this coach like me at this position? I have more control over being a father than I have over my football career. So I'm going to focus on being a father, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the end of my football career. And I went to my agent and said, I'm done, bro. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I started working with his firm, and the rest is kind of history. So, yeah, me growing up and not seeing a father present really motivated me to. If I can do one thing right as a father, it could be to be present.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. I did have a dad until I was 10, then he died unexpectedly. And I think about, the games. Now, I wasn't out there being a star like you and hitting home runs and everything else. But, maybe I threw somebody out at first. Maybe I got a double or a single, I still miss that. Everybody running to their dads after the game and their dads talking to them about what they did well and, hey, we need to work on this more. Now, my mom was there and that was nice, but there just wasn't that. You miss that. And I think that's part of the reason why I value it as well. And, just so strongly. And I was wondering, I didn't know that about you. And that makes complete sense. Hey, so complete my sentence. The most challenging thing about fatherhood is what?
Challenging thing about fatherhood is,
For you personally.
I think, giving what you don't have.
Explain.
Like, you ever heard the saying, like, you can't give what you don't have. If you don't have love, if you don't have empathy, if you don't have happiness, if you don't have loyalty, you can't give it, right?
Yeah.
And I think becoming a father, never seeing it, right? Like, I never saw love from a father, a man.
Yeah.
But my biggest fear becoming a father is, how do I give this kid love? I know I have it in me, but I don't feel it because I've never felt it from a man. What's happiness to my son? Like, I didn't have those, like you just said, running off the baseball field, hugging a father, or, dapping him up, or getting in the car riding home, say, hey, you can do this better, you can do this better, or even down to, like, being punished by a man. Like, how do you punish your son and you've never been
Yeah.
punished by a man? I've been punished by a coach, but
Yeah.
household, I've never seen that. So, mine was, just, how do I give what I don't have? So everything, all those emotions, all those lessons, I had to develop them, and
Yeah, I love that. That makes a lot of sense. And, I was talking to a guy, gosh, a couple of months ago, and about to be a new father. And we were talking about everything. And he said, I am scared to death. And I'm like, why? Like, what? Like, I was too, but tell me why. And he said, I never heard, and this guy played baseball, was drafted, bounced around the minor leagues a little bit. And he said, I never heard my dad tell me he was proud of me. And I never heard my dad say he loved me.
Right.
And he said, I longed for that. He said, I still do. And he said, I don't want to be my dad. I said, you know what? You being aware of that right now
Of course, yeah.
is the first thing. And I don't think you have to worry about that. And you just have to make sure you do it. And he said, it's going to feel so uncomfortable. I said, yeah, but once you do it, you're going to get more comfortable with it. And they're going to, and you're going to see how much they appreciate that. And, yeah, so that's something. Hey, so let's move forward. I want to be cognizant of your time. You're retired. Years from now, you're sitting on a beach or you're sitting somewhere, your kids are grown. What will you need to see, or what would you like to see to be able to think to yourself, man, I did one hell of a job as a dad. Like you know what, I might have been hard on myself. I didn't have a role model, but I did pretty darn good.
I think it's a Bible verse. I think it's in 3 John. It talks about the greatest joy of my life is to hear that the children are consistently living their lives in the ways of truth or something like
Yeah.
that. I think because I always tell Aiden, like, you can be anything, but you can't be everything. You know what I'm saying? You can be anything
Yeah.
you want to be, but you can't be everything.
Yeah.
We got to find something to stick to it. So I think, again, going back to that Bible verse, is just knowing that, my kids are living their lives in their truth and they're being what they want to be. And they're not doing it for anybody else other than themselves, and like the one thing everybody sees Aiden now, he's 6'3", like you've seen him, phenomenal
Yeah.
kid, like just like he runs and it's like, Jesus, dude, like this dude's so fast and athletic, but everybody always asks, why is he not playing football? Like, he could be a top wide receiver or, cornerback or stuff. And I'm just like, he didn't want to do it. I'm not
Yeah.
going to make him do it. So, I think when we as parents, we just want to make the greatest joys is making sure they're happy and whatever their happiness is. And, I actually had a friend a while back, he found out that his daughter like girls,
Mm-hmm.
she's 19 years old, 20 years old. And, he's a man's man. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
former defensive lineman and all this. And, we were talking about it and I said, take away what she likes, what she dislikes. Do you still love her? He said, yeah. I said, well, that's what you leave with love. That's the
So,
easiest thing you can do, leave with love. And, there's no figuring out why she don't like boys or she like girls, just love her.
yeah.
And that's all you can do. So, I think when I'm sitting retired, first off, I don't think I'll ever retire. You know what I'm saying? I love what I do, and it brings me so much joy to be a small part of these young men's lives. And I mean, every draft I felt literally it's like watching a rerun of a movie. I know exactly where I was on my draft day. I know exactly what me and my agent spoke about, and I know exactly how I felt when I didn't get drafted. So every moment that I'm able to experience a guy getting that call, like, man, when I tell you I'm like bawling, literally. I don't care what round it is. I don't care if you're the second pick overall in Chase Young or if you're a Brock Purdy type last
Yeah.
pick, or if you get an opportunity, you get that phone call. I feel that for you. I know
Yeah.
how you felt because I know how I didn't feel. So, I just want my kids to be happy, to be dependent on, the Lord and know that that's where their strength comes from. And, again, be people of action and not of words. Just that will make me happy in knowing that, that's what I tell Aiden all the time about playing sport is just learning from failure. That's what you learn in sports. You learn from failure. You don't, there are very few athletes that have learned in success. They learn in failure.
That's the truth. I mean, we're always talking about when we have dinner. It's like, okay, where'd you fail? Where did you fail this week?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where,
That's literally my conversation with Aiden. Like,
yeah.
and I
Yeah.
have with my clients that are super talented. Like, I'm representing this year Donovan Edwards out of Michigan, who
Yeah.
we remember watching him run all over Washington,
Yeah.
the Huskies, and then he didn't have a so great year this year. I mean, you're talking about a not Madden, but college football cover athlete. Him,
Yeah.
Travis Hunter, and I think it was Quinn Ewers from Texas, the quarterback.
Yeah.
They were the three on there. So such high expectations. But I told him, I said, your strengths always become strengths only if you understand what your weaknesses are.
Yep.
Your weaknesses, you have to know your weaknesses better than you know your strengths.
Yeah.
And they always look at me and I say, I guarantee you get behind closed doors with those teams that are going to be invested in you and giving you millions of dollars. They don't care that you know what your strengths are.
Right.
They care more that you know what you have to work on to be great.
Yep.
Weaknesses. Hey, you're not so good in this area. How have you been, don't mask it, address it. So that's literally my conversations with Aiden every week. Now, if I talk to baby girl, she's 5 now. She don't think she has any weakness.
She might not.
She's perfect right now in my eyes. So talks a little too much, but that girl can't hold water, man.
Man, she deserves to be so spoiled. I tell you what, I would never, she probably still wouldn't be walking. I wouldn't put her down, man.
Yeah, it's hard too, man. She's literally, when I pick her up from school and she'll say, hey, can you pick me up? And like literally we're walking up a steep hill from her school. Like she's on my neck.
Yeah.
And I hear all the other kids like telling their dad, can you do that? And they're like, no.
I ain't built like him.
You see this guy? So yeah, you just try to enjoy those moments, man, because and I know you know this with your boys, like Aiden's my height now.
Yeah.
Like, he still accepts hugs from me. And there's not a time where Aiden's friends have come over or he's left and literally in front of his friends, like, all right, man, I love you, Aiden. I love you too, Dad. Give me a hug. And like I haven't experienced that moment where he's not an affectionate boy. I
remember that with Max, my oldest, was when he expressed that in front of his friends after a game. And I said, hey, I'm proud of you and I love you. And he was going to the locker room and he was like, he's got all his buddies around him. He's like, thanks, Dad. I appreciate it. I love you too.
Right.
And leaned in and gave me a hug. And it's like, wow.
Right.
You
know? Doing something right at that moment.
Yeah. Hey, so about to let you go, but will you make me a promise?
Absolutely.
Friend to friend.
Absolutely.
All right. If you find yourself in the coming months across the table and in negotiations with the Saints, will you please go a little easy on them? Look, it has been so tough over the last few years. And just throw them a bone, something, please. Help us.
I mean, it goes both ways because, I tried to get them to sign a couple of my other players and they didn't.
We shoot ourselves in the foot. We do.
Yeah, I mean, I respect the organization so much. I mean, it's so much behind the scenes, just the way, Kai and Mickey and those guys like just maneuver their salary cap, just to be
kick it down the road.
Yeah, I think the one thing you can't in this league, the one thing you can't predict is injuries. And you look at teams that win. You look at last year with the Eagles.
Yeah,
Jalen Hurts was healthy. Saquon Barkley was healthy. That line was healthy. And look where they ended up. The Saints.
You can't, even a healthy Saints from last year, you can't compare the two. Let's be honest. That's nice of you, but you can't.
You can't, but you give yourself a chance.
Jalen Hurts, Derek Carr. No.
I mean, you think about it, like they had, Olave was out most of the season.
We did, and we had line issue. Yeah,
line issues. So I'm not by no means. That's why I love the movie Any Given Sunday.
Yeah.
Not the content of the movie, but just the title of the movie, because that's a true statement.
Oh, totally.
You look at what people thought the Washington Commanders were so far from being a playoff caliber team, and it took an ownership change, a head coach change, and a new quarterback.
Yep.
And in 1 year, they're a 10+1 team.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It is.
So I'm saying is that a healthy Saints team, especially in the NFC South, which is not a super strong division, it gives them a better opportunity.
We still have some holes, and I hope we do our best to plug them, try to plug them in the draft and afterwards free agency. So we'll see. But anyway, help us if you can. Certainly would be appreciated. Damarius, how do people find you?
You mean social media?
Yeah.
That will be, what is my social? Bilbo 8, Bilbo 8. I try to not be as active on social media. It's just I actually got a timer on my thing with 30 minutes a day, and probably 25 of those minutes are looking at my players' pages and make sure they didn't post anything crazy. You know? So yeah, I'm probably, and I don't know if this is my sports background. I'm not the agent that tells people I'm the best, or but I probably work harder behind the scenes than most people, and I've always been that person. I don't care about my players' lifestyle is not my lifestyle.
Yeah.
I just want to see them flourish and thrive, and I think I'm best suited doing that from behind the scenes, because like everywhere I go, people still think I play football, so I don't ever want to make people think I'm doing this for any reason other than to watch the player and their families be successful. So I'm really behind the scenes a lot. I don't do a lot of talking and speaking out publicly. I think since I've been with Klutch, I did one interview when we first started the agency with GQ. That was it. And and that's by design. Like I
Yeah.
didn't used to do a lot of stuff. I did this for you, Robert, because you're a great friend, and you're doing something great when anytime you incorporate, just fatherhood and faith, like you said before, those are two things I'm very passionate about. So
No, you are. And I appreciate you are a very humble, very grounded person.
thank you.
I mean, you're a man's man. I mean, you're one that for others to look up to.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you taking time out. I really do. It means a lot to me. Your friendship means a lot to me as well. And I appreciate it.
Likewise.
I definitely do.
We definitely catch a Saints game this year. I talked to Chase the other day. He had the neck surgery last year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I couldn't come to any games. I said, Chase, I can't, I can't be present until I know this thing is, so I owe Chase about 2-3 games this year. I just left his birthday party Saturday in DC, and he had us all dressed like cowboys. So it was pretty cool. Pretty cool theme party. So
I was happy that we got him back. I was very happy that we got him back. So
yeah. And he did. Like I said, he did what he did last year. People hadn't seen the best of Chase Young. He literally found out in free agency, like last year, that we went to a couple of teams and they wanted to sign him. We're talking big money.
Yeah.
And they found out that he had the little neck thing, and most people want to see him have the surgery. And the Saints were they're like, look, we want to sign him, and we'll have the surgery. We'll sign him even if he has the surgery. So they kept their word. But he spent all last off season. He didn't even work out last offseason. He was literally rehabbing the whole offseason. So to go into a full football season, play 17 games,
Yeah.
not really work out in the offseason, and still I think he came away with like 6 sacks, 5.5,
Yeah.
something like that. You look at him now, whole different animal. Whole different animal. He's dropped about 15 pounds. He is shredded. He looks good. So God willing, he'll have a great season this year and give you guys something to root about.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. We need it. We need it. We need every bit of help we can get. We certainly do. We certainly do. Well, hey, Damarius, thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it. Look, and thank you all for listening to Dad's podcast. You can find us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, as well as on most podcast platforms. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and feel free to leave a comment. I read every one of those and certainly appreciate the feedback we receive. And I look forward to talking to you all next time.